Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today's video is going to be on the top 5 things you need to know about SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. We're going to dive into this topic here today. Before we do, please smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe so you get access to great new content coming your way. Love to see your comments in the description down below. We'll definitely be responding. All right, so let's dive in here out of the gate. SIBO, that stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Done lots of videos. We'll put them somewhere here so you can get access to some of the old videos. But what is it out of the gate? Let's just make sure we dive in and make sure it's clear, right? SIBO, it's characterized by an excessive number of bacteria in the small intestine. Okay, this is going to differ from, a bacterial imbalance. It's typically bacteria from the colon or the large intestine migrating up and growing in that small intestine. Again, this overgrowth can disrupt the normal digestive process and lead to various symptoms. This is why it matters. So we have bacteria typically found in the colon, large intestine, moving upstream into the small intestine. It shouldn't be there. So we have this increase in bacteria in a place in the intestine that shouldn't be. Now, what are the big SIBO symptoms? SIBO can have slow motility symptoms like constipation and slow motility. Can also create diarrhea on the, diarrhea on the increased motility side, constipation on the slow motility side. Of course, we can have bloating in there as well. We can have nausea, can even have vomiting as well. But again, you're going to have a lot of these type of IBS type of symptoms, whether it's IBS-C on the constipation or IBS-D on the diarrhea. It's very easy if you have IBS. That's just a diagnosis of exclusion, meaning they've ruled out irritable bowel disease, ulcerations, cancer. It's not a significant inflammatory issue, so they typically just label you with IBS, and they just give you medications to control the symptoms. We want to actually get to the root underlying issue, and SIBO can be a root underlying etiology in these conditions. So bloating will often worsen as the day progresses due to an increase in fermentation in the gut. So the bacteria is feeding off that food, it's fermenting, it's creating gases, and those gases can disrupt the motility, whether it's typically you're going to see more hydrogen gases increase the diarrhea, and you'll see more methane gases increase the constipation. And so with SIBO, you have gases that are being produced by the imbalance in bacteria in the gut. Typically, you're going to see excess hydrogen, excess methane, or both. Hydrogen drives diarrhea, methane constipation, and you could have alternating as well. It's very common. Now, there is an IBS-SIBO connection. Like I mentioned, IBS is just a diagnosis of exclusion. You ruled out the more serious stuff. Now you have these symptoms, typically IBS-C, constipation, IBS-D, diarrhea, and so IBS, it doesn't really tell you the root cause. They're just going to be managing with medication. So we want to actually get to the root. Now, different bacterial imbalances can be an actual root cause. So there can be a massive overlap. Many individuals diagnosed with IBS, especially IBS-D, that's the diarrhea one, may actually have SIBO. Same with the IBS-C, the constipation, maybe more on the methane side. So recognizing this overlap is incredibly crucial for diagnosing and getting to the root cause of what's happening. So when you diagnose and treat SIBO, right, there's a breath test. Breath test where you're going to basically blow into it's called a Quintron bag. You blow it in, you get a baseline. Then you're going to swallow this lactulose solution. That solution takes about 2 hours to work your way from the stomach all the way down to the colon. And so you'll measure your gases in 20-minute intervals. Baseline at 0, lactulose solution, 20 minutes later, every 20 minutes. And so by the 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, so by the 6th bag, we're right at the end of the small intestine. So those first 2 hours are the most important in regards to looking at imbalances in the gases in the small intestine. And so the lactulose is a big molecule. It's going to be fed by the different bacteria in the gut. And so if we have lots of gases in that first 2 hours, then we know that that's more than likely from the bacteria being in the small intestine. If it's right in that first 30 minutes or so, 20, 30 minutes, 20, 40 minutes, could be even stomach as well. There's also a glucose breath test where we can look at to assess stomach. And so that's the breath test. That's going to be your lactulose breath test, and that's going to measure the methane and hydrogen. Treatments on this are going to vary dependent upon how predominant the gases are, if it's going to be hydrogen, methane, or how high it is and when. Now, your typical conventional treatment will be like a rifaximin or Xifaxan and neomycin antibiotic, usually a 2-week protocol. In the functional medicine world, there's data that using herbals can actually be more effective than antibiotics, and so we'll do different herbals, whether it's higher dose berberine, neem, golden seal. Will we use biofilm busters, ginger, oil of oregano? There's lots of different herbs that we'll use. Like in my line, I have my GI Clear 1 and GI Clear 6 are a common herbals that I will use that have stomata and dill and wormwood and Java brucea and Hydiatus coptis and Yara and Tinea and French tarragon, different herbs that I found to be very effective in knocking down these bugs. And then on retest, we see massive drop in some of these gases. So that's what we do on the herbal side. And I find getting the diet dialed in is very important. We'll work on the diet first, a paleo kind of lower FODMAP anti-inflammatory diet, because fermentation is so important, because these gases ferment, they acidify, they putrefy. So if we don't break down that food, that's going to be a big deal. So we really want to get the hydrochloric acid, the enzymes, the bile salts, the digestive support to really help break that food down fully. Also, if that food's fermenting, it's not broken down, that's a big deal. And also, the acidity of the hydrochloric acid makes it harder for bugs to grow. The bile acids also make it harder for the bugs to grow. So very important. An accurate diagnosis is essential for the effective treatment and what medication or what herbal support we use. So we'll also do stool testing, because what if we find there's fungal overgrowth? What if we find there's a parasite? What if there's H. pylori? So we don't ever want to just rely on the gases, because there could be other bugs in there that may change the treatment that we recommend if we're going more on the herbal, functional medicine, natural side. So again, on the diet side, right, different diet and lifestyle changes. Low fermentation diet. So I go paleo low FODMAP, because you can still eat a lot of inflammatory foods that are, let's just say, you could eat a lot of lower FODMAP diets that still have a lot of inflammatory foods. Maybe excess grains, excess glutinous things in there could still be problematic. So I got to go paleo, so we try to get the inflammation down. We're still focusing on good fats. We're trying to keep the carbs in check a little bit. We're trying to go lower FODMAP and still have good nutrient-dense foods, cut out the excess omega-6 fatty acids, eat good healthy proteins and fats, and dial in your carbs, and really make sure it's nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory, and low toxin. And again, the diet is aiming to deprive the fermentation, deprive the overgrown bacteria of their food source. That's really the goal, right? It's going to ferment these foods. We're trying to deprive that fermentation process so these bacteria cannot grow. Meal timing and frequency is very important. So I like to eat every 4 to 5 hours is pretty good. If you're constantly grazing, that could be a problem, because you're constantly putting fertilizer in there for the bacteria to grow. So avoiding constant snacking is really important. That basically helps facilitate natural intestinal cleaning process, i.e. you eat, you allow the motility and the migrating motor complex of peristalsis to move food through the intestinal tract. Then ideally there's a gap, right? And there's more room for more food to come in 5 hours later. If you're constantly putting things in there to ferment, that could create problems and create more gas. So hope that makes sense there out of the gates. And so those are the top 5 things you want to know. So we talked about diet. What is it? We talked about the different, treatment options, diet options, how it can be confused with IBS. We talked about the conventional options as well, and some of the natural options. And again, I will look at different stool testing to look at the different bacteria. Do we have Klebsiella, Citrobacter, Proteus, Morganella? Do we have Candida overgrowth? Do we also have H. pylori or any other bugs or C. diff there? I'll run organic acids too to look at other bugs as well, because that can tell me about C. diff as well. Tell me about Candida. Sometimes Candida or SIFO, small intestinal fungal overgrowth, can be a big thing as well. And it's easy to miss that on a stool test. So it's good to look at that too. All right, guys, Dr. J here. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, love to see your comments down below. If you want functional medicine support and you want to dive in, link down below to reach my colleagues and team here if you want functional medicine support worldwide. All right, guys, take care. Have a great day. Bye now.